We celebrate freedom every July, fireworks, flags, and the idea that liberty is our birthright. But as the founders, freedom was never free. And just as a spirit, it still isn't. Freedom, it's not a loophole or a luxury. It's a call to live boldly, love sacrificially, and carry freedom's weight with grace. You're absolutely free, but that freedom will cost you and change you. We're looking at freedom today.
Got it.
I felt the freedom to dance like that.
I didn't dance. I don't dance. I'm not a dancer.
Well, clearly, neither am I.
Oh, Bill, freedom. That's a deep subject, right? We see them all over the t-shirts, especially this time of year. Sparklers come out, the t-shirts, and everything's red, white, and blue. We throw the Star-Spangled Banner on everything. But when we're talking about freedom, like there's a cost associated with that. Like real freedom, when you really think about it, you got to really dig in and think, what did our founding fathers, when they signed that Declaration of Independence, what did they actually sign? They signed their lives away, right?
They really put it on the line. When we think about freedom, we think about, I can eat Cheerios or I can eat Lucky Charms. I'm free to choose. And sometimes we take freedom as a little too trivial, maybe. But when you look back at the founding fathers, you're right. It was do or die, the cost of freedom. So, Jamie, we have to define what freedom really is. Where would you go with that?
Yeah, I think when you think about freedom, it is this idea of being free from some sort of circumstance that you're currently experiencing. So it doesn't mean that you are completely free to do anything you want. That becomes chaotic for everyone if everybody's just doing anything that they want. So there has to be some boundaries, some sort of guidelines for us. So if you think back to the founding fathers, here we are, 4th of July, our nation's birthday. So when you think about it from that perspective, they were filling out that Declaration of Independence. They signed it for the freedom from British rule because they felt like that circumstance was not conducive to what they wanted to create with the new nations. But they were just signing, they were free from that. But then they were at the same time putting themselves under another set of guidelines, if you will.
Right. So freedom, we're kind of saying, actually we are saying, is freedom means you're being freed from something.
Yes.
And so you're being freed from something, but that doesn't mean you're being freed from something to nothing. You're being freed from something to something that you consider to be much better.
You're not being freed from everything. It's almost an exchange. I'm being freed from this one thing that I no longer want to be held back by, so British rule. But at the same time, I'm exchanging it for another set of rules or guidelines or whatever you want to call them. But if you go clear back, we got 56 men signed that document declaring freedom from British rule. So declaring the independence that we no longer have to be a part of Britain. That in and of itself can sound a little bit heroic, right? But they were just signing their names. So what risk was there really in signing their names? But man, I mean, tell you what, when you think about it, they were true rebels in signing that.
Let's talk about what they may have sacrificed.
Yeah,
what some of these 56 guys did. So
yeah, I mean, there's some of the obvious ones that everybody knows. John Hancock, he wrote his name in there, giant, and the saying is,
yes.
The story goes that he wrote it so big that the King of England could see it, his signature, without his spectacles.
Right.
So there's some of those great stories that we always know, but there's some other people that signed that most people don't know. Thomas Nelson Jr. for one, probably one that a lot of people don't know about. He ordered his own home to be bombed or shelled because the British had taken it over. He's like, well, if the British are going to take my house, I don't need my house no more.
Right.
And neither do they.
And if I recall, sacrificially on his part, he died bankrupt because he personally funded the militia. And he died at the age of 50, and he died bankrupt. He said, I'm in this the whole way, completely in it.
Many of the signers had a lot of financial woe afterwards, whether it was bankruptcy or at least hardship from a financial perspective.
Right. And but a lot of them, when they signed it, they lost the loyalty of their family. Some of them lost the loyalty of their sons and daughters. Some of them lost the loyalty of wives and friends. Some of them lost all of their friends because their friends would say, "No, I'm going to stay British." And he says, "No, there's a better way." And that's what freedom is, choosing to leave something behind, freedom from something, in order. There is a better way. There's got to be a better way. And that's how this nation started. There has to be a better way than whatever Britain was offering. Because at that time, wasn't Britain at that time the rulers of the world, as it were? They were colonizing everything.
They were colonizing everything, everywhere. The world's greatest navy at the time. Redcoats were such a disciplined militia, or not a militia, but an army. Who in their right mind would try to go up against them?
Well, these 56 guys. And it probably started, no doubt it started out when there were two guys talking over coffee. I'm sorry, they were probably talking over tea because they were still under British rule. They probably started by saying, "I really don't like tea. I want coffee. I want freedom from tea." Start a revolution. Well, Boston Tea Party. Maybe there's something in there. I don't know. But when we look at some of these, go ahead.
So here's the thing. So you have these 56 guys that realize that, hey, what we have is not as good as what we could have. So we have this, so we want the freedom from that. But in that decision becomes the decision to be uncomfortable.
Oh,
Because within Britain, it's kind of the thing, this isn't good, but at least it's what we know.
right.
Versus here's something that we're going to step into this complete unknown because we don't know if this new nation that we're trying to create, we don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
And as a result, they were willing to put everything on the line because they believed in it so much. And for some of them, it cost them everything. Some of them were captured.
They had this desire to be free from British rule. They believed they had a desire to it. But a desire without direction leads to chaos. So they had a desire, but then they had to have the right kind of direction. And I believe it's in that context probably that they said, well, we need a declaration of what we're doing. We need a declaration of independence from Britain.
Which then led to the Constitution, right? It's because now we have to write the new rules that we're saying that we're going to live with under, because freedom from everything is chaotic.
Right. Desire without direction leads to chaos.
And on one side of that, it can sound kind of attractive, right? I get to choose to do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, with whomever I want. I get to do all of that. That's what I want. True autonomy sounds good in theory. But if everyone's doing anything they want, whenever they want, however they want, with no rules, no anything, now you've got Mad Max.
Or the mid 1800s in the West.
Or you have that.
Where
the Wild West.
There ain't no law here, law dog. We don't want no law here. It's just whatever we want. So we're going to look at the idea of, I'm talking about freedom and these guys. I'm blown away by what some of these guys do, the signers, because we're like John Adams. He faced political backlash, clearly. He cost him popularity early on. We're thinking, well, that's any politician early on, is you lose some popularity. Benjamin Franklin, when he jumped in on this, clearly he was clearly in on this. He was estranged from his loyalist son, so he never had his son back by his side ever. That's a commitment. My son-in-law and daughter just had a baby, and they're completely devoted to that baby. And to think that that baby, when growing up, would totally separate from anything to do with her parents, you don't even think about that now. But that would just be soul crushing, because so they were.
Well, and you can go through. I mean, that's a great example, and I think you can go through some of the other more well-known signers, people like Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, James Madison, Samuel Adams. A lot of those, they all had businesses fail. They had they lost friends. They were ousted from public favor, all due to their belief that there was something better than what we were currently experiencing, which goes back to, again, that whole concept of what is freedom. And freedom is not do anything you want whenever you want. It is the idea of we want to do something different than we currently are, and we're going to set ourselves free from what we're bound by, and we're going to put some different structure in place that will guide us that we think is better.
Right. So, should we talk briefly about the difference between freedom and liberty?
Wow, we can.
Let's do that just for a minute. Now, please come from the understanding that Jamie is an American by birth. He grew up studying this stuff in school, high school, some of which he actually remembers. Talking with him about this, he actually remembers these things. I, on the other hand, did not. I am an immigrant from Canada who studied very briefly American history, but studied extensively Canadian history, which makes sense. But I did have to go through a test to become an American citizen, which I hate to say it at this point, but it was kind of easy. I barely had to study. And that was a couple decades ago, at least, when that happened. So, that being said, I defer to Jamie and his high school knowledge.
That's been enough years ago. It's interesting to see how much we actually remember.
It's been at least 10 years, Jamie. So go ahead.
It's been at least 10 years. Yes. Thank you for that.
So liberty.
So here's the thing. We're, as citizens of the United States, we have the right to pursue happiness and life and liberty, right? So here's where I think liberty fits in. Freedom is freedom from something. Liberty is what puts the structure around it.
Okay. That was my comment. Okay.
How do you see that? I mean, does liberty fit in for you?
This is where I struggle, and I shouldn't. It may be very obvious to some people, but maybe not as obvious to me when it comes to the idea of liberty. Liberty gives you the freedom to do things, but again, it's within a new structure. And that's kind of what America was looking for. They were looking for freedom from Britain, but they were looking for liberty under a new system, a better system, a more crafted system that allowed people the freedom to do stuff up to a point because there's our laws. And liberty gives us the freedom to live under a new set of laws. It also gives us the freedom to change some laws if we need to. And we've done that over the years.
Yes, that Declaration of Independence, it clearly states that the right to life, the right to liberty, so the liberty of like your freedom within these set of rules, and then the pursuit of happiness. You know, and that's what the signers were fighting for. And I think that's why our country's birthday should be so significant to us. Of like, we certainly are not perfect, but we do stand for something, and we know what that is. So how does like call it action here, but how do we wrap this up, and what does that mean for you and I, but also for our listeners? Like, how do we apply what we just talked about?
Well, first of all, I think being thankful that we're not under even a concept of tyranny. Some people would disagree, but I do not. I'm free to do just about anything within the context of the law, within the context of the liberty that we have. And
as long as I'm not imposing upon the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of another person, I can almost do anything I want.
Right. And so action step, man. First thought is just be thankful that we live where we live. If you live in America.
I think that's a great place to start. I think another one to do is, about the founding fathers, they looked at something huge in terms of what do we want to be free of. But I think individually we can look at it and say, well, is there something that I want to be free of, and what am I willing to pay? What's the cost of being free from that tyranny that might be a personal tyranny?
So freedom from procrastination would work. Freedom from pornography would definitely fit in there, and because there's a huge, clearly getting off topic from the founding fathers, but that's a huge thing that binds people if you're not free from that type of thing. So
I think almost any bad habit, right, is that thing that you are now restricted by, and
you can be free from it. And that idea of freedom, saying, okay, I want to be free from this. What am I willing to pay? What am I willing to sacrifice in order to be free from it?
Because it is going to cost you.
Yeah.
Bill, I think this is a deep enough topic. I think maybe we should do another episode that maybe goes a little bit deeper into the whole concept of what freedom actually is.
Absolutely. But there's going to be another podcast probably about this, because we've just scratched the surface. We're not going to spend years on it, although we could. But there's more to freedom than we're looking at right now. And we'll get to that eventually. So, are you free? Absolutely. But freedom
Cost you.
is going to cost you. So if you're liking what we're doing, we appreciate it. I'm going to push a button. Stuff's going to come down. We appreciate your opportunity. If you like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you very soon, because you have the freedom to watch this podcast or not. Absolutely. I'm Bill. That's Jamie.